I still remember the day like it was yesterday, the day my own children told me the house wasn't mine anymore. The place where I had raised them, the walls that held all our memories, suddenly felt cold and foreign. My son looked me in the eye and said, "Mom, this house belongs to us now." His wife stood right beside him, arms crossed, smirking like I was some stranger trying to break in. I was stunned. My heart pounded in my chest as if it knew what was coming next before my mind did. "What do you mean it belongs to you? I've lived here my whole life. It's my home," I said, my voice trembling. But they just laughed cold, hard laughter that cut deeper than any knife. Then came the papers. They handed me documents. They wanted me to sign papers that would give up all my rights to the house. "It's better this way," they said. "We're just helping you." But I knew better. Their smiles didn't reach their eyes, and every word felt like a lie wrapped in honey. I sat there, stunned and betrayed, feeling like I was losing not just a building, but my dignity. How had it come to this? My own children, the people I trusted most, turning against me like strangers. The house was supposed to be ours, a family home passed down through generations, not a prize to be stolen. As I stared at those papers, a cold realization settled over me. This wasn't just about a house. This was about respect or the lack of it. And if I signed those papers, I would be signing away more than property. I'd be signing away my place in this family. And so the battle began. I'm a simple person. I spent most of my life raising my son, Sam, and watching him grow into a man I thought I could trust with my world. My husband passed away years ago, so everything I had was tied to this house, the home we built together, and filled with love, laughter, and even the occasional fights. But through it all, it was our family's safe place. Sam was always my pride and joy. He was a good kid growing up, responsible, caring, and respectful, but that all began to change when he met his wife, Laura. At first, I thought she was wonderful, smart, polite, and full of charm. I wanted to welcome her into our family. I even helped plan their wedding, feeling hopeful about the future. But Laura wasn't who I thought she was. Behind that sweet smile was something else. She had this way of making me feel small, whether it was the little comments about how old-fashioned I was or the way she'd roll her eyes when I wasn't looking. Sam, caught in the middle, started to change too. I could see the tension in his eyes, the way he seemed quieter when Laura was around. Besides them, there was my longtime friend and neighbor, Mrs. Kahn. She was like a second mother to me, always checking in and offering advice. When things started feeling off with Sam and Laura, I confided in her. She warned me gently that sometimes people change when money and inheritance get involved. I brushed it off at first. I never thought it could happen to us. Then there was my lawyer, Mr. Malik. He had been helping my family with legal matters for years. I trusted him implicitly. When Sam and Laura began pressuring me about the house and documents, I turned to Mr. Malik for guidance. I believed he would protect my interests. But soon, even the people I thought were on my side started acting strange. Conversations became secretive. Phone calls stopped when I entered the room. Sam and Laura started insisting I sign papers they claimed were just formalities. I wanted to believe it was all for my benefit, but deep down, something felt wrong. Our family, once close, knit and loving, was now filled with whispers, half-truths, and growing walls of mistrust. What had gone wrong? How had my son and daughter-in-law become strangers living under the same roof? I kept asking myself these questions, trying to hold on to hope. But hope felt fragile, like a thread that could snap any moment. It didn't happen overnight. The disrespect started small, almost invisible at first, like cracks in the foundation of a house. But those cracks grew, and soon they threatened to tear everything apart. At first, it was little things. Sam stopped calling as often. When I visited their home, Laura would forget to include me in conversations or roll her eyes if I asked a question. I tried to brush it off, telling myself they were just busy or stressed. Then came the first paper. They told me it was just a routine formality, something to update the property records. I barely glanced at it before signing, but later the questions came. Why did I sign without reading? Why did I trust so easily? It became clear they wanted me to sign more documents, more papers that seemed official, but made my stomach twist with suspicion. They assured me I was doing the right thing, that it was for the family's future. But the cold looks exchanged between Sam and Laura told a different story. One afternoon, Laura snapped at me in front of the neighbors. You're not the one running this family anymore," she said sharply. Maybe it's time you accepted it. The words hit me harder than any slap. Even my friends started noticing. Mrs. Khan pulled me aside, her eyes full of worry. "Amir, you need to be careful. They're changing, and not for the better." But the worst was when my own son, the boy I raised, stopped defending me. Instead, he became distant, sometimes angry. I overheard him talking on the phone, saying things like, "Mom doesn't understand. We're just trying to do what's best." The tension in the house grew thick, suffocating. I felt like a stranger in my own home. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I found an envelope slipped under my door. It was from Mr. Malik, the lawyer. My hands trembled as I opened it, expecting routine papers. Instead, I found a letter short, cryptic, and chilling. The letter hinted at something I never knew, a secret buried deep in the legal papers, something that could change everything. But it didn't say what. It just warned me to be careful and not to trust everyone. That letter was the first real clue that this fight wasn't just about money. It was about power, control, and betrayal. I folded the letter slowly, my mind racing. Who could I trust now? And more importantly, what was I about to discover? The pressure to sign those papers didn't stop. Every day, it felt like the walls were closing in on me. Sam and Laura kept pushing, trying to convince me it was for the best. "It's just paperwork, Mom," Sam would say, his voice softer now but still firm. "You don't have to worry about anything." But I did worry. I worried because every time I asked questions, I was met with impatience or silence. Laura's smile was always a little too tight, her tone just a shade too cold. It wasn't the loving family I once knew. It was like they were rehearsing lines from a script I didn't understand. One afternoon, they brought the papers again. This time, I refused to sign. "I want to see the lawyer," I said, my voice shaking but resolute. They exchanged quick glances but nodded. At Mr. Malik's office, the atmosphere was different. He was calm but serious. "These documents are to transfer the property into a trust," he explained. "It's a common practice to protect assets for future generations." On the surface, it sounded reasonable, but as he spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When I asked who controlled the trust, the answer was vague. "That will be detailed in the trust documents," he said, not meeting my eyes. When I got home, Sam and Laura's smiles returned, but this time they felt forced. I could see the tension beneath the surface, like they were waiting for me to give in. That night, I sat alone, staring at the papers spread on the table. Signing them meant giving up control over the home I had poured my life into. But refusing meant facing their coldness, their growing resentment. It was more than just property now. It was my place in the family slipping through my fingers. After refusing to sign those papers, the atmosphere at home grew colder than ever. Sam and Laura started talking around me, not to me. I overheard fragments of conversations, Mom's holding us back. "We need to move fast before she changes her mind." But what hurt the most was the lies they told about the will. One afternoon, Laura said, "Loud enough for me to hear, Mom. You have nothing to worry about. The will clearly states everything is ours now." Sam nodded, adding, "You'll get your share eventually, but this house belongs to us." I felt my chest tighten. I knew my husband's will well. I had kept the original copy safe. It didn't say anything like that. Not at all. When I confronted them, they brushed me off, calling me confused or forgetful. Even Mr. Malik seemed reluctant to clarify things. I began to suspect something was very wrong, that maybe the will they showed him wasn't the one I knew. The lies stung like poison. They weren't just trying to take my home, they were trying to rewrite my family's story, erase my voice. I reached out to Mrs. Khan for support. She reminded me, sometimes greed blinds people to the truth, Amir. You have to stay strong. But staying strong felt impossible when the people I loved were turning their backs on me. With every passing day, the walls seemed to close in tighter. I knew I couldn't trust Sam or Laura to tell me the truth anymore. So I started meeting with Mr. Malik alone, hoping to find answers. At first, he was cautious, careful with his words, polite but distant. "Amir, these matters are delicate," he'd say. "I'm bound by confidentiality." But I was desperate. I needed to know if the will I had was real, if the documents they pressured me to sign were legitimate. I couldn't lose my home without a fight. During one meeting, I noticed a folder tucked away on his desk. It looked official, thicker than any paper I'd seen before. I asked about it quietly, and his eyes flickered for a moment, betraying something. "Amir," he said softly, "there are things you don't know yet, things your family might be hiding." My heart pounded. "What do you mean? Is there another will?" He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "There might be. I can't say for sure until I check further." That night, I lay awake, the letter from Mr. Malik still fresh in my mind, his words echoing. A secret will, buried truth. Could this change everything? Was there hope left? But hope felt fragile. The next day, as I prepared to visit his office again, a sudden thought hit me. What if this wasn't just about property? What if my entire family had been keeping secrets from me all along? The day I discovered the secret will is etched into my memory forever, a day I thought might break me, but instead became the beginning of my fight back. After my quiet conversations with Mr. Malik, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to see everything with my own eyes. I went to his office, heart pounding, palms sweaty, and asked him straight, "Please show me the will, all versions you have. I need to know the truth." He hesitated, then nodded. He brought out a thick folder dusted with time and carefully laid out several documents. Most were old, but one stood apart, a will, handwritten and signed by my late husband, hidden away all these years. The moment I held it, I felt a rush of emotions, disbelief, relief, and a flicker of hope. This will was different from the one Sam and Laura had been quoting. It clearly stated that the house was to be held in trust not for my children, but for my grandchildren. It said my son and daughter-in-law were merely caretakers until the grandchildren came of age. I read the words over and over. This was proof that the house wasn't theirs to claim. They didn't have the right to push me out. The house belonged to the future generation. My grandkids and I was still its rightful guardian. But why had this will been hidden? Why had no one told me? Suddenly, everything made sense, the lies, the pressure, the coldness. Sam and Laura weren't protecting me or the family. They were trying to take control before I realized the truth. Tears welled up as I folded the paper. For years, I had been silenced, but now I held the key to my home, the truth. I left Mr. Malik's office feeling both scared and empowered. I knew confronting Sam and Laura wouldn't be easy. They had already shown their true colors, but I wasn't alone anymore. The law, the hidden will, they were on my side. As I walked back to the house, a storm was gathering inside me. I was ready to fight, not just for a building, but for respect, for my family's legacy, and for the love that home represented. The battle wasn't over, it was just beginning. The next step was to find out the real status of the property, who legally owned the house and the land beneath it. Holding the secret will was one thing, but if the deed was in Sam and Laura's names, the fight would be much harder. I went back to Mr. Malik, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. He pulled out the property records, old and new, and laid them before me like puzzle pieces waiting to be fit together. At first glance, the documents looked confusing: transfers, signatures, names crossed out and replaced. But then Mr. Malik pointed to the latest deed. It shocked me. The property was still legally in my name. None of the transfers Sam and Laura had claimed to have completed had gone through. How is this possible? I asked, voice trembling. "They've been telling me it's theirs." Mr. Malik sighed. "They may have tried to forge or rush paperwork, but the system caught the irregularities. No one can legally take the house from you unless you sign over the deed or a court rules otherwise." A wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by anger. My own son and daughter-in-law had tried to deceive me, pushing false papers, twisting the truth, hoping I wouldn't look closely. I realized then that their greed had blinded them. They thought they could pressure me into signing away everything, believing I wouldn't fight back, but now I knew the truth. The house was still mine, and the secret will meant that eventually it would belong to my grandchildren, not Sam and Laura. Armed with this knowledge, I felt a renewed strength. The battle ahead would be tough, but the legal ground beneath me was solid. I would not let my family's legacy be stolen by lies. A few days after discovering the secret will and confirming the property deed was still in my name, I received another letter from Mr. Malik. This time, it wasn't just a routine update, it was something that shook me to my core. The letter explained that my late husband had set aside a hidden inheritance, separate from the house, intended for me and the grandchildren. It was in a trust fund, untouched and unknown to most family members. According to the lawyer, this inheritance was protected legally and could not be accessed by Sam or Laura without my consent. Reading those words, I felt a rush of emotions, disbelief, hope, but also a fire of determination. My family had tried to erase me from the picture, but here was proof that my husband had planned for me, had trusted me to protect what was rightfully ours. The letter also hinted at a legal loophole, a clause that would allow me to block any attempts by Sam and Laura to sell or mortgage the house until the grandchildren reached adulthood. I read and reread the letter, realizing this was the leverage I needed. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't powerless anymore, but with power came responsibility. I knew that exposing this inheritance and standing up to Sam and Laura would trigger a storm. Would they finally accept the truth, or would they fight harder, desperate to claim what they believed was theirs? I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my purse. This was my secret weapon, and I was ready to use it. The moment I decided to fight back, everything changed. No longer would I be the quiet, powerless parent pushed aside by my own children. With the secret will, the deed still in my name, and the lawyer's letter about the hidden inheritance, I finally had the tools to take control. I contacted Mr. Malik and told him I wanted to initiate legal action, immediately a stay order to prevent any further attempts to sell or renovate the house without my consent. I wasn't just fighting for the property. I was fighting for my dignity and my family's legacy. The court responded faster than I expected. Within days, a stay order was issued. The house was legally locked down, no renovations, no sales, nothing could happen without my approval. I changed the locks myself, feeling a surge of power and relief with every turn of the key. This was my home and I was taking it back, but the real shock came when I saw their reactions. Laura, who had always carried herself with confidence, broke down screaming on the lawn. Sam begged at the gate, his voice shaking as he pleaded for forgiveness and understanding. It was painful to see the son I loved reduced to this desperate and broken. Despite the turmoil, I stayed firm. I wasn't going to let the past months of betrayal and disrespect be swept under the rug. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was my life's work and my family's heart. The battle to reclaim the house did more than just rearrange our legal papers. It tore open wounds that had been hidden beneath the surface for years. The fallout was brutal, raw, and painfully real. After the court's stay order locked the property down, Sam and Laura's anger erupted like a volcano ready to explode. They didn't expect me to push back, let alone win. Every time I saw them, their eyes burned with resentment, cold and unforgiving. Laura, especially, transformed before my eyes. The polite smiles vanished, replaced by harsh words and bitter stares. I remember one afternoon when she cornered me in the kitchen, her voice low and venomous. "You think this is over? You're just making everything worse for yourself." Her words stung, but I refused to let them break me. Sam was the hardest to watch. The son I had raised, once kind and gentle, now seemed weighed down by guilt and confusion. His silence was louder than any argument. One evening, after a particularly tense family dinner, he appeared at the gate, his eyes swollen from crying. "Mom," he said quietly, voice trembling, "I'm sorry. I didn't want it to come to this. Please, let's find a way to heal." But how do you heal when the people closest to you have stabbed you in the back? How do you rebuild trust after it's been shattered? I stayed silent for a moment, looking at the son I once knew, the man he had become, and the family I feared we might lose forever. Neighbors began to whisper. Some expressed sympathy, others took sides. Mrs. Khan, my steadfast friend, stood by me through it all, reminding me that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones that teach you your true strength. The house, once a symbol of family unity, had become the battleground for betrayal and broken promises. But I held on to one truth: reclaiming what was mine was only the first step. Now, the real work of healing and setting boundaries had just begun. After everything that had happened, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let myself be treated like a doormat anymore. No more silencing my feelings. No more accepting disrespect disguised as family drama. I had to set clear boundaries for my own peace and for the sake of my grandchildren's future. I sat Sam and Laura down one afternoon, calm but firm. This house, this family, it's not a battlefield. But I will not tolerate being pushed aside or disrespected. I told them, if we are to move forward, it will be on my terms. Respect comes first. Laura scoffed, trying to mask her anger. Sam looked away, conflicted. I knew this wasn't easy for any of us, but I had to be strong. I explained that I wasn't just fighting for the house, but for dignity, trust, and love, things that money and property papers can never buy. I'm willing to forgive and rebuild, I said softly, but it won't be quick or easy. From that moment, I noticed small changes. The cold silences began to thaw, replaced by hesitant conversations. Respect was still fragile, but it was there a foundation we could build on. Most importantly, I realized that boundaries weren't walls to keep people out, they were lines that protected what mattered most. I wasn't just standing up to my family, I was standing up for myself. This house isn't just bricks and mortar, it's where love lives, where respect grows, and where a family can heal if they're willing. Betrayal is a wound that cuts far deeper than skin. It strikes at the heart, at the very core of who you are and how you see the world. For me, the betrayal wasn't just about losing control of a house. It was about losing the trust I had in my own children, the people I had loved and raised with all my heart. In those dark days, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of disbelief and sorrow. How could Sam and Laura, the people I cared for most, turn against me? How could they so easily dismiss the years of love and sacrifice with cold, calculated greed? The pain was sharp, relentless, like a storm that wouldn't pass. But grief, I learned, isn't just about sadness. It's also a path toward growth, painful but necessary. The first step was accepting that the family I had once known had changed, that the people I had trusted had made choices I couldn't control. I allowed myself to feel the pain fully, the hurt, the anger, the confusion. I cried when no one was watching. I questioned if I was strong enough to keep fighting. Yet, amid the heartbreak, I found small moments of light. My grandchildren's laughter reminded me of innocence and hope. Mrs. Khan's unwavering support gave me the strength to keep moving forward, and the secret will and the lawyer's letter became symbols of a truth I could hold on to. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt like I was taking 2 steps back for every step forward, but with every passing moment, I grew more certain that my worth was not defined by what others said or did. It was defined by who I was: a mother, a grandmother, a woman with resilience. I began to rebuild not just my life, but my spirit. I started setting boundaries to protect myself from further pain. I learned to say no without guilt, to demand respect without apology, and slowly, the wounds began to close. I didn't become immune to betrayal, but I became stronger than it. When I look back on everything that happened, the most important lesson I've learned is this: inheritance isn't just about money or property. It's about respect, love, and the values we pass down, far more precious than any house or bank account. For years, I believed that leaving my home and savings to my family was the best way to show my love. But what I hadn't realized was that the true inheritance is something invisible: the way we treat each other, the respect we show, and the bonds we nurture. Sam and Laura taught me a painful lesson about how greed can blind even the closest family members. Their actions reminded me that money can bring out the worst in people, turning loved ones into strangers. But through that pain, I also discovered the opposite: the power of dignity and forgiveness. I learned that respect is not demanded through threats or control. It's earned through kindness, understanding, and honesty. And while I fought hard to protect what was legally mine, the deeper fight was to protect my sense of self. Worth. Family isn't perfect, no one's is. We all have flaws, make mistakes, and sometimes hurt those we love most. But healing is possible when we recognize that what truly matters isn't wealth, but connection. I now understand that inheritance is a legacy of values, respect, loyalty, and love that will live on long after the material things are gone. And I hope my story reminds others to treasure those things above all else. As I stand here today, looking back on the storm that nearly tore my family apart, one truth shines clearer than anything else. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too. Money can buy houses, cars, even fancy vacations, but it cannot buy respect, trust, or genuine love. Those are priceless, fragile treasures built over a lifetime, yet easily shattered in moments of greed and betrayal. I fought not just to reclaim a house, but to reclaim my dignity, my voice, and my place in the family I thought I belonged to. It was painful, it was exhausting, but it was necessary. My story isn't unique. I've heard from so many who have faced similar battles torn between love and greed, loyalty and betrayal. And if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's this: hold your respect close, protect it fiercely. Because when respect is lost, no amount of money can fill that void. To those watching who might be going through something like this, whether it's with family, friends, or anyone who should love you, remember your worth. Stand firm, set boundaries, don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. We all deserve to be treated with kindness and dignity. No inheritance is worth losing that. So as I close this chapter, I choose forgiveness not because I forget the pain, but because I refuse to carry its weight forever. And I hope that someday my family will understand that respect, not money, is the true legacy worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, if it gave you strength, please share it. Because no one should face betrayal alone. Remember, respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.